This won't be a long introduction, but I do want to introduce my sister Mitzi, who is the baby of the family. And she's been a most fun sister. She's mother of two very lively boys and a grandmother of 4 grandchildren. And the grandchildren have been taught to call her Yoma, which is short for Your Majesty. Okay, just a quickie. She went to Harvard. She's she's called the first female graduate of Harvard because she graduated 6 months before when the Radcliffe became Harvard. So she calls herself, or we call her the first female graduate of Harvard. Okay, she was married to the late Frank Perdue, Mr. Chicken, and it was a very happy marriage. It was for 17 wonderful years, and it had a fabulous life together. I won't go on and on because I could, but Mitzi Perdue.
Thank you, Augusta, and thank you everybody else. And as we see from the Ukraine you haven't heard, it's going to be an approach that I'm a war correspondent. There is no war correspondent in Ukraine who has told stories from the police department. I was invited by the head of police for Kyiv region. It's a man who has 65,000 people under him. And I want you to imagine, and this is all on the context of a view of the police that you haven't had before, or a view of Ukraine that you haven't before. I want you to imagine you are a 70-year-old woman. You're actually a babushka. You're quite overweight. You've got a scarf over you, and you're walking along a dirt road, a suburb of Kyiv. You're walking along. It's fairly early in the morning, and as you walk along, you see ahead of you 5 men. Well, the village that you belong to, it's about the size probably of Peterborough, and you pretty much know everybody there. And these 5 men ahead, you don't recognize them. And you look again, you're walking along the road, and you look up at them, and you realize, hey, they're all the same age. They don't belong to this village. They are all maybe in their 20s, and they're very fit. Who might they be? And then you remember some of the information that you as a citizen of Ukraine have heard, which is there are infiltrators. Infiltrators are people, enemy invaders, who are there either to scout, where to direct bombs, or you're there to find vulnerable places like bridges. Well, you're walking along and they're getting closer and closer. And at this point, you absolutely realize, I can't look at them because I'm just going to pretend to be kind of out of it. And I make my way to where my daughter-in-law is, to her home. I rush inside and I call the police and I say, I think I've seen 5 infiltrators. Here's their location. And they're like a 15-minute walk from the bridge. The police get this, and they've been trained to respond in the same way that a fireman is respond. You don't dawdle around, you just jump in the car. They race to the bridge, and the 5 guys, kind of pretending to be tourists, are walking along. The police intercept them, discover that in their coats, it's winter, that there's explosive. They were there to blow up the bridge. Well, I'm telling that story because it's in the framework of the police in Ukraine right now are doing things that police in the United States just don't have to do because they're not during a war. And I will show you some of the things. Am I talking loud enough?
No, but you untrained the camera the second time you used that signal.
Okay, and are we working now?
No, you kept it up too long. And
Oh, there you
now you got it.
Perfect. I think I'll just stay here. Perfect. It's But one of the things to know, as I tell you about the functions of the police, the functions that the police have are so important that the Russians, their MO, their way of operating is the first people they'd like to kill is the soldiers, but the second, it's a priority for them, is to kill every police person they can, to destroy every police station, every car, every police vehicle, all police communications. And since 1991, when the Russian Federation was formed out of the old Soviet Union, in that time, Russia has invaded 12 different countries. They're a very bellicose country. And what they always do is they go right after the police. And what we're looking at right here is a bombed police station. And the functions of the police are, number one, stop infiltrators. And I've just told a story of what they do. I'm told by members of the police that the scene I just described, which is a real one, that something like that happens 2 or 3 times a day, every day, that everybody in Ukraine is trained to be on the lookout for people who just don't fit in and let the police know. And they've saved a lot of bridges. They've saved a lot of important places. So their job is to stop infiltrators. The next one is to clear mines. The Russians are absolutely diabolical in their use of mines. Am I speaking loud enough, by the way? Okay, the police, that's in the US, that would very often be a military job, but the police are multiplying the effectiveness of the soldiers by taking on this. And what will very typically happen is when the Russians invade a place, but how about they're withdrawing from it because they're being forced out, they will lay mines, landmines, just on a spectacular scale. The latest information I have is that Ukraine is almost being turned into a giant minefield. President Zelensky says there's 75,000 square miles of Ukraine that have had mines put on them. And what the Russians do when they're leaving a town, they will booby trap it. And the town will just be full of things like, you're home, you're happy to be safe in your home, and you open your microwave, an explosion blows your face off. Anything that you open, it could be a cupboard, it could be a washing machine. Other things that they mine, dead bodies. They also have children's toys like dolls and teddy bears that are mined. And the goal is, we know very well that their goal isn't to kill the child, it's to maim the child, like it will blow their hands off. And I wanted to show you a couple of examples of this. What you're about to see next is an example of a landmine. It looks a little bit like a leaf when there are a few pine needles fall on it. And can you see it?
Wow.
Okay, and now you will see it. These are made of plastic. The Russians will seed just random places with landmines, and they're made of plastic so that the regular demining equipment won't detect it and magnetically remove it. And they specialize in putting it in playgrounds. Or here's another one. Did I go backwards? This is a policeman demining one of those leaves. Do you see the glove here? And notice how it goes down to a bunch of bombs. I mean, they're absolutely heartless. And by the way, in international law, having mines that are anti-personnel mines is a war crime. The Russians are doing it on a spectacular scale. And now, if all works out, you are going to see a video that I took down from YouTube. The video it's like an advertisement. You've seen on television, like advertisements for pickups or, I don't know, a kind of Ford or something. This is what the Russians advertise. And you're going to see a rocket that's going to burst forth with landmines. It has a range of 3 to 15 kilometers. That tube is filled with landmines. What do we do? Well, I'll tell you what you're going to see. You'll see this thing, it's going to fire, and you'll see it does have a range of 15 miles, and it's scattering landmines along the way. It's going to fall randomly. When the United States landmines, they're set very carefully, like very random. You aren't going to be able to have a map to remove them. And is this will it work? Because we're just waiting for it to. Well, okay, what you're seeing there, I showed you a rocket that will randomly have set landmines, and they'll do it particularly those things where you saw 100 landmines going out into the air. They make a specialty of aiming that rocket at they aim that rocket at agricultural fields. Supposing you're a farmer and you're growing very typically sunflowers or corn, these rockets, you're driving along in your combine or your tractor, and there are 100 mines in that field. And you may lose a limb, but you might also lose your equipment and go bankrupt. What that does to a country, and what that does to somebody's psyche to know at any moment I might be blown up. The picture that we're seeing right now this is another function of the police. In the United States, there might be a few police sharpshooters here and there. In Ukraine, the sharpshooters, the police are trained to be sharpshooters because of the following situation. When the Ukrainian soldiers are liberating a town, they want to chase after the Russians who were the invaders. But the Russians very carefully deploy dozens and dozens of sharpshooters to slow down the military. What the police does is, this is a policeman, he's going to act as a sharpshooter so that the military can just keep on pursuing. And again, this is on the subject of, this is what the Ukrainian police do that our police wouldn't be doing. I can't see where I make it go forward.
I think it's the little two things in the bottom.
Which I can't see, but maybe I'll hope that they're there. Would you move it for me? Another thing that they do is they document. Let's go to the next one. You see, go after that one. Yes, they document war crimes. If you've committed a war crime, it can be a hanging offense. I have this information from like a couple of days ago from the Ukraine Police Department. They now have 52,000 documented war crimes. And I got to talk with one of the people. Can we have the next slide? This is Father Andrew, and we are looking in the basement, which happens to be bomb-proof, of his church. And while I'm interviewing him, can we go to the next slide? Okay, while I'm interviewing him, a power station was hit that, when I was first there in the basement, you could see all these beautiful icons and paintings. And by the end of it, the lights had gone out because another power station was hit. And I concluded the interview by the light of cell phones. And he told me the story that he's from the town of Bucha. And the first day, the invaders come in and they want to take random people and put them in a filtration chamber, which is actually, we would call it a torture chamber. And what they're there for is they want, say they pick up some of you and they bring you into this room and they'd ask you, please tell me, or maybe the word please wasn't part of it, but we want you to say who are the leaders in the town, who are the teachers, who's law enforcement, who's a politician. And you don't want to give it away because you think something bad's going to happen to that person if you give their name. There are 5 of you. And this is a story that this man told me. And it happened continuously, but the police and he were able to interview the survivors of this. You, sir, have refused to rat out the population of Bucha was 1,200. You know everybody there. Tell me, and you say no, and the team that is interrogating you shoots you in the knee. That's very painful. You still don't give up. Gun to the temple. There are 5 of you. The second person, same thing, third, fourth. By the time you get to the 5th, you are you've just watched 4 people have their brains spill out. The psychological pressure is so extraordinary that it's pretty much irresistible, and that's what the interrogators are trained on. This man, Father Andrew, said that the Russians would get the names of the leaders. They didn't want anybody who could oppose them in taking over a town. They killed 400 people. That get the names of the people and then hunt them down. There are mass graves, and he also told me that the Russians would put them in a great big trench. After the Russians were kicked out, they were there for like 6 weeks. He and a whole lot of police examined, emptied the trenches where the bodies were. And from his point of view, he was giving a Christian burial or a decent burial to everybody there, but he knew all of them. But at the same time that they're exhuming the bodies, there are 20 police from France who were there, who are DNA specialists. There were people from pretty much all over the world who were documenting this war crime, pictures of where the bullets were. It was just so clear that these guys had been tortured and then murdered. And Father Andrew told me that during the days when they were reburying them, that their job was to document the war crimes, and it was being live streamed to The Hague, where people from The Hague and the International Court of Justice would get to see and have records of everything. And Father Andrew said this was so important because if you don't get justice, you go for revenge. And he wants justice, and he wants this behind us. Next slide. In interest of time, I'm going to make this short, but I got to interview myself in the police station, several people who were victims of war crimes. This guy, he told me that one of the ways they tried to get him to talk is they asked him to lie face down on the ground, sort of arms out like this, like a starfish, he told me. And he was wondering, I'm just, I'm 60 years old. I'm not a soldier. I'm a civilian. Why are they making, what's this about? And then he learned that if your arms are like this with a boot, the guy broke 3 ribs on this side and then 3 ribs on this side. And then they had him, it was 20 degrees out. They had him stripped his underwear. They put him in a trench with other people who at the start were still alive. But by midnight, by like 3 or 4 in the morning, he noticed that one of the people beside him had died. And he told me that what enabled him to survive was, in spite of the pain of cracked ribs, he crawled under the dead body and used the body as a blanket. This is the kind of thing that the Russians do, and I don't think we would. Father Andrew told me that almost, I guess there's no worst, but among the very worst is that the soldiers who had done these things in Bucha, they were invited back to Moscow, and Putin's giving them awards, that they had done good rather than they had committed war crimes. Next slide. The police do a lot to for civilian morale. And next, I wanted to show you. This is on a day when they're bombed almost every day, but this was on a day when, again, there were 40 rockets heading towards us. The chief of police, he has a thing or two on his mind. Bridges are being bombed, power stations are being bombed. He still took the time to go to an orphanage. And what you're looking at here, click it again because there's one other little part. The kids, they each got presents. And there's a police band there. There are 8 people trying to bring a little joy to the orphans. And there was a moment when General Nebitov, whom I came to think of just as heroic, he's talking to these little 8, 10-year-old kids, and he said, you're our future. We love you. And what must it mean to be an orphan and have somebody so important come and try to bring a little cheer? And I wish I had much longer and I could tell you other things that the police do, but they're so focused on helping with morale. Let's go to the next. I believe Ukraine's going to win. And let's go to the next. And the next. And the next. What you're looking at, can I bring it up? Yes. Augusta mentioned that I was a Harvard graduate. My major professor was Henry Kissinger. And one of the things that I remember from being among his hundreds of students was he said, it's so easy to think of our weaknesses. He said, it's at least as important to analyze what the weaknesses of the other side. And so trying to do that, we are up against a country, the US, our GDP, gross domestic product, is almost 23 million. Russia, 1.6 trillion. And to put that in context, South Korea is 1.8 trillion. We're up against, our opponent has a smaller gross domestic product than South Korea. And on top of that, their population is roughly 140 million. 1.2 million people have fled the country, and they tend to be they're in the top quartile for earning. They tend to be like managers, they're better educated. And what must it do to a country to lose 1.4 million? And there's probably many times that who would leave if they could. So I think Russia is getting weaker by the day. It's working now. Mm-hmm. Then another factor is, look who's supporting Russia. We all know who's supporting us, most of the world, but there are people who support Russia. Look what great, firm, strong, wonderful supporters Russia has. Belarus. It's led by a man whose hold on power is like a spider web almost. It's well known that most of the people in his country want him out. He's an evil dictator and he rules with an iron hand, and he uses the same sort of techniques that Russia uses to suppress people. China is in such terrible economic shape right now that, and this is information I looked up this morning to get the most current, the college graduates are facing right now a 19% unemployment rate. Their economy is crashing so badly that they just can't provide jobs for kids. And I could go on more about China's weaknesses, but we've got some others. Cuba going bankrupt. Iran in the middle of a huge, almost civil war. Kyrgyzstan bankrupt. Nicaragua facing a civil war, North Korea starving to death, Venezuela. The average weight of somebody in Venezuela has decreased by 17 pounds since their economy began crashing. Okay, so that's who's supporting Russia. I can't say when, but using the Kissinger approach of looking at the weaknesses of your enemy, our enemy is weak. How long they can stay, I don't know. But I do think that Ukraine's going to prevail. And did I do that? Oh, I've got my screen up, but it's not showing there.
I would say we have real power.
Okay, well, this happens to be my last slide. So I'll tell you what's on it. It's me in a bomb shelter interviewing students. And the story behind me in a bomb shelter interviewing students was this was a day I mentioned earlier where the children, the school has roughly 150 students, only 75 were there. The others, we learned, the bomb did hit a power station. They were on a subway on their way to the school. They were trapped for hours and hours in complete darkness, can't communicate with anybody because that's what happens when a power station goes out. The students whom I got to speak with, their teacher told me that morning, knowing that the city was under attack, she had come with armloads of games like Monopoly. And she came into her physics class, which is in the bomb shelter, by the way. And the kids told her, the kids told her, we don't want to have games. We don't want to be distracted. We're here to study. And I have a quote that I so want to see. There, but it's not showing to you, but I'll read it to you. I interviewed all the kids, just on the theme of what's it like to be a student in a time of war when your city's being attacked. And a 12-year-old girl was the last one that I got to speak with. And she said, we're studying, it's hard because there are bombs heading towards us, but that we know that we're the future of Ukraine, that we have to study so that we can help rebuild our country. And that gives me so much hope for Ukraine. If even a 12-year-old girl says, my job is to study so I can help rebuild the country. I mean, it was just beautiful. And that's the completion of my view of why Ukraine is going to prevail and why the police play such an important role. And thank you for your attention. And I think I'm supposed to end right now, but if there were a question, tell me what to do.
Keep on going. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
Mitzi, you're wonderful. Some people have to go back for meetings and such.
Shoot.
Sorry, I have to leave. Thank you.
Okay, well, I've loved being with you. If anybody, I wrote a book. How many people here have heard of Chicken Soup for the Soul? Okay, I wrote a biography of him, and all the royalties of it are going to help Ukraine. And it has won 3 literary awards. It's an Amazon #1 bestseller. And people say a bit that it's the book of the century, that it's inspiration and that it's life-changing. If anybody wants to buy it on Amazon, all the royalties, everything that I would make is going to go to Ukraine. So buy away. Relentless. Oh, pass it around. And is it possible to have the final slide show?
Is it showing on your screen?
It's showing in my screen, but I don't see it there.
It's not showing the projector on. Well, it is, but I think the screen sharing clicked off when we had power break.
Okay, so should I press share screen? Okay, does anybody have any questions? Because I don't want to keep people longer than.
You are optimistic.
Yes and no. I think before the time that we. I guess I should be here. I'm optimistic long-term. I think there's going to be horrendous suffering along the way because Putin doesn't seem to care about human life. So when I believe that long-time Ukraine will prevail, and I expect that the damage Putin has done to his country, it will take 2 generations to heal. So when the war is over, I can't predict, but I would bet everything I've got that the Ukrainians will prevail.
You're going back.
March.
What are you gonna do?
I sold a Frank Perdue's engagement present to me. It was one of the larger perfect emeralds that he got from a sunken treasure ship. It sold at Sotheby's for 1.2 million. And all of that money is going to support humanitarian efforts. And some of it is real short-term things like gloves. There are 176 police and they don't have gloves. So it's going to short-term things like gloves or portable power stations. But 300,000 of it is going to a shelter for refugees. And particularly refugees, women who might be subject to being trafficked. So I'm going back there, I hope in March, and it could be April, but for the opening of the,
You can still work with the police?
always.
That's your love, and that's your home base.
Yeah, totally, because I figure they're the ones who invited me. They're the ones who invested all this time in having me meet all these different people and have these experiences. Oh,
It got untrained on you last time you raised your hand.
Thank you so much.
thank you, everybody.
Right, close the usual fashion.
Nervous about that.
Thank you very much.